Hey everyone, welcome to the Smiling Homeschooler Podcast. It's good to be back, and we appreciate you joining us. Before we begin, we want to say thank you to Teaching Textbooks for helping make the Smiling Homeschooler possible. If you are done with the school year or wrapping up and wanting to make a change in math and you're not using Teaching Textbooks, you should definitely go check them out. It's the math curriculum my family uses, I used when I was in school, and a lot of my siblings have used as well, so go check them out, teachingtextbooks.com. Today's show is also being underwritten by Samaritan Ministries and Redeem Health Share, where members are committed to honoring Christ through a community of Christians that pay one another's medical bills. Redeem Health Share helps families take a safe step of faith as they feel God's leading in career or in ministry changes or in bringing mom home. And you can learn more in the show notes or in the Facebook comments about Redeem Health Share by Samaritan Ministries. But Dad, if you're ready to go ahead and get started, let's go.
I am. I think we've been having some internet issues, so hopefully this turns out okay. But we just finished... I just got a note. It's not about my internet, so I think I'm good so far. We just celebrated a birthday party here. Cal, my second youngest son, just turned 20 years old today, which is shocking, and shocking that he has a dad as old as he is. But we just finished up our March Madness bracket, not for basketball, but for our Disney heroes and villains. And we're just down. Tonight I will announce the winner. And I could tell you, Ben, but I don't really know yet. Between the final two are Captain Hook and Tarzan, of course, Disney animated features. And there was some heated discussion of what kind of stupid person would pick Hook or Tarzan for their hero that we were having tonight. So those are the kind of things that happen in our house.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. I mean, it's always interesting just to see what people put in, and but it's now we're gonna have to make it a yearly tradition. I mean, we're 2 years in now, so we'll see if we can keep going. But one thing I did want to talk about before we get into our main topic is kind of just another tip, which this is not rocket science, and hopefully most of you are already familiar, but Riss and the kids did a field trip to the with their homeschool co-op to the library in not our town, but a nearby town, which in Indiana, we're part of the Evergreen library network. So if you are at Evergreen Library, which our small one is in our town, then you can check out at any of the other ones as well, which is cool. But also they have like a bunch of really cool stuff. So these are the things that I didn't know about. Maybe this is common knowledge to everyone, but they had, for example, in Indiana, we have the Indianapolis Children's Museum, which is like one of the best kids museums in the country. It's really incredible, but it's expensive, like very expensive if you have a decent amount of kids. But they have passes at the library that you can check out. So like if you had, if you and your husband wanted to go, you can get an adult and 6 kids for free, just with one of these passes. So they have a certain amount of them. So if they're all checked out, you couldn't, but I'm assuming, most of the time they aren't. They also had things like they had some tools you could check out. Like I heard about one where they had like leaf blowers you could get, if you needed something just for like a day kind of deal, which I'm like, that's super cool. They also had like a big poster printer. So if you wanted to print a poster, it's only $5 and you could print out, a huge one, which is just super cheap and really convenient. So or they also had like a whole area where you could like digitalize, old pictures and videos and things like that. So I don't know. To me, libraries were always like books, movies, maybe some audiobooks, things like that, games. But now it's like they're branching out into a bunch of other stuff. So maybe everyone knows that, but I thought that was really cool. And if you haven't checked them out, you should ask them maybe about some of those other things, or see if they have some of those local passes or whatnot. So I don't know, just thought it was cool. What are you counting?
I'm counting the winner of the Hook and Tarzan. I'm sorry.
I hope you're good.
You were talking about a library, right?
Yep, talking about a library. Well, Kat couldn't make it because of the party and everything else, but she sent us some questions from last week's post where we asked, what have been some hard parts of homeschooling recently. And these are, good questions. And I can read the first one, Dad, if you want.
Sure.
Let's see here. I'm just going to pick one of them here. This one was 2 people kind of said the same thing. Angela said, burnt out, unhappy with current curriculum, so making a swap. Motivation, fear that I'm not doing enough to count. And then Melissa said, pushing through and finishing well. We have 3.5 weeks. So I think that first kind of general topic of motivation coming into the end of the school year, which is, can be pretty tough. So I think it's a good topic to cover for this week.
I know. We get them in separate orders because mine don't look anything like you just. I mean, they're the right reading, but when you said they came together, I didn't see them together.
Well, they weren't on the exact same text, but they were the same topic basically between two texts. So I can.
Okay. So the first one again was burnout and unhappy with current curriculum. So making a swap motivation, fear that I'm not doing enough to count. I mean, I feel like, this is one of those things that we talk about all the time. Feeling like you're unhappy with your current curriculum, making a swap. I mean, that's what homeschoolers do. I mean, we pivot, whether we want to or not. Sometimes I think it's easy to think that it's admitting defeat, maybe, that somehow the curriculum has beaten us. But that's not it at all. I think there are just times, and again, not pointing to your personality type, but if you haven't taken our personality type, that we also sell a brand new personality book that goes along with it. That might be because of your personality. One of the personality types we call is an owl, someone who is very thoughtful, wants more out of their curriculum, and so they switch a lot. They're looking for something better. And I think maybe that's part of your personality, and that's okay. But the secret is probably that the curriculum you just bought isn't going to be much better than the one you already have. Because some things you just have to slug through. And I think that's one of the reasons I like shorter things. I don't like maybe a whole year curriculum. I do kind of like, short segments you can do for 6 weeks or 4 weeks or maybe just 2 weeks and then move on. But the part that I don't like, Ben, and you can comment on that one as well, the fear that I'm not doing enough to count. I just hate that, and I find as I'm getting older that I'm getting more and more militant against all this counting and all this fear of not doing enough. In fact, we posted over at Facebook, and I don't know if I can get it because, again, I was having trouble. But I posted on Facebook just today, things that, those signs of spring that you're ready to make those changes. And even then you can do what you want. I say you've switched from math, science, and history to cleaning out the garage, playing outside, and field trips, because that becomes your school, really, if you want it to be. And so I just wouldn't worry about does it count, because it all counts.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a strong feeling, and I get it. Everyone feels that, I think. And especially, I know, depending on certain states, we always have to give the caveat that it can feel more intimidating, especially. But if you are in one of the free states, like Indiana, just don't sweat it, because you have an amazing gift that you do not have to worry about that. You can get to count what you want to count, and it's so beneficial. I heard someone a while back was like, they were talking about how, it was at the convention, actually. I was talking to a dad, and he's like, they had a coffee shop that, they ran, and they actually lived above the coffee shop. And he's saying, he's like, yeah, I mean, my son, I brought him down, and, he was doing change and helping check people out and stuff like that. He's like, it was almost like he was doing school. I was like, almost. I was like, that's exactly, like, he was learning. What do you mean he was almost doing school? I'm like, that's maybe the most beneficial kind of thing you could do, something like that. So it's crazy how, if it isn't one of those core subjects that neatly fits in, you do start feeling like maybe I'm not doing enough. Maybe I'm not, I'm just failing there, but I really do believe that you're not, and you're doing a great job, as long as, your kids have that, not even love of learning those subjects, but just excitement about life. They're gonna be totally okay. But it is hard. I mean, especially this period of time. I mean, I felt, especially this last week, not so much this week's, but I mean, I felt super down, just in the, dumps, and my wife has been, and it's just a dreary, tiresome time. Again, we always talk about how it's like the longest stretch without like a holiday. And especially with homeschooling, you don't necessarily, do the spring breaks, but you should be able to take breaks whenever you want, so don't be too, as you just said, militant about it, because we're in that final stretch. I do think there is some like, you don't want to have to just be drudgery, but there is that sometimes if the motivation's lacking, that's where some habit can, kick in just for that last little bit. If you are trying to finish to a specific date, just kind of doing your day. And sometimes it's okay. It may not be the most exciting every single day. I don't think that also needs to be like, I'm just failing if it's not like an amazing day every day, personally.
Yeah. And sometimes there aren't amazing days at all. And sometimes it's the end of the race and you're just grueling to get it done.
Yeah.
And so I would speed things up a little bit. If I felt like it was too grueling, I would say, hey, here's what we're going to do from now until our last day. We're not going to necessarily get up earlier, but we're going to start on time and we're going to push through as fast as we can. And we're going to be done by 11 o'clock, and because really anybody can tolerate it in short. But if you're dragging it out again, don't do that. I mean, don't get stuck in those long slogs because nobody wins. I too bad Kat wasn't here tonight because, as they were getting ready to leave our house, they got into a one of those battle of the wills with their daughter, and they wanted her to do something, and she would just like shut down. And I totally remember when our kids, and those are the times you just cannot win. You're like, okay, we're gonna go deal with this again, and then you go in and out, in and out, in and out. And sometimes you just have to cut your losses, and you go, this is a consequence, but we're moving on. And maybe again, you set those time frames when you're slogging and saying, we're done by 11. We're not going to let it drag on till your kids are doing math at dinner time. And I'll hear mom say, well, they didn't do it. So they have, and you just say, hey, you didn't get it done. So you're going to miss out on this, but we're done now.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I think, we're so close, and you get to decide again. What we always say is you pick that day. So if you're feeling like it's getting real close and you just, nothing's being accomplished anyway, you might be able to go ahead and just say, I'm going to be done. You get to decide that. So, we'd encourage you, if that feels like it's time, make the call. But maybe I'll save the second one here. Actually, we'll do one more quicker one, and then we can do another one. But Amanda here said, lack of community and loneliness, that loneliness is so tough. That's a really hard place to be in. I mean, it's one thing if you're not feeling motivated, but if you're feeling not motivated and don't have anyone around you, it's a really dark place.
And I would say, though, if you're feeling it, so is someone who's probably really close to you, maybe not close to you like in relationship, but close to you in person, in distance, geography. And so this is just me. If I was thinking, I don't have any community, I'm not part of a co-op, or I'm not whatever, I don't like the co-op I was in, or whatever, I would just put it out there on Facebook. I'd put it out and say, hey, we're going to have a mom's gathering. We're going to do it one time. We're going to just gather together at so-and-so at this time for 1 hour or 2 hours, and we're just going to talk. I'm going to guess you're going to get someone who shows up. And, then maybe take it a little further. Say, hey, was this fun? Did you like it? And maybe you follow up afterwards and you go, hey, that was really fun. You want to try it again? Maybe not too soon. Maybe it's a couple of weeks, or maybe, it's every other week. But I just think somebody's out there waiting for you to start something too. It doesn't have to be a big full-blown co-op where we learn all this stuff, but maybe it's just a gathering. And then you just talk about homeschooling and you ask the question. So what are you feeling about homeschool right now? And it's amazing what happens when you just start those conversations. But I will say it again, everything you're feeling, there are lots of moms who live near you who feel the exact same way.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's always the hardest part about when you do feel that way, is that you do feel like you're the only person, or maybe you're the problem, but you're not the only one. And there's so many people out there feeling that. And a lot of times it is just people don't make that effort to say something to someone else around them, whether it's at church or, at wherever else you might bump into someone. So I feel like the realness is so critical, being open and just, even letting someone know, hey, I don't really have a community right now. Would you be interested in, grabbing coffee and just, talking a little bit or something like that. So yeah, I feel for you though. I mean, I know we've gone through periods where it's felt like that, and thankfully, we are plugged in right now, but there are seasons in life that I think that it does kind of ebb and flow some, but it can be a really discouraging time. So definitely understand that. But real quick here before we continue, I do want to say thank you to Teaching Textbooks for helping make the Smiling Homeschooler possible. They're coming, we're wrapping up the school year, but next year we like to think about homeschooling for what we're going to do the next year right now during convention season, so you don't have to think about it during the summer and coming right up to it, so you can enjoy that time off. So as you're thinking about what you're going to do next year, if you haven't checked out Teaching Textbooks, you should. They have family plans. It works on any device basically that has an internet browser. It's just fun, it's interactive, and it's engaging. So go check them out, teachingtextbooks.com, and tell them that we sent you, and appreciate their support.
We want to take just a minute also to remind you that that seasonal saying, April showers bring better healthcare options. You've heard me say it before, but let me say it again. Redeem Health Share by Samaritan Ministries is a large group of Christians helping Christians pay their medical burdens. It might seem a little different than you're used to, but it works. My family has used it for 15 years and we couldn't be happier. That's because with Samaritan, we share more than just healthcare costs. We share our lives, our faith, and encouragement with one another. With Redeem Health Share, you're never, ever alone. You can click on the link in the show notes to learn more about Redeem Health Share by Samaritan Ministries.
So Sarah here wrote a big one. This is something I think every parent worries about to some level, even if it's not this specific scenario. But she said, fears about affording Christian college or fears of my child abandoning Christ at a public college. And I've realized that once again, my fears are about the future, but God has always provided what was needed at just the right time. So why do I worry? Trying to look at the birds today and remember who provides for them. So, I mean, I think whether it's, the college or whatever else it is, I mean, that that's a big worry. And I do know from the Christian college standpoint, it really any college, it's crazy expensive. But what do you say to that, Mom?
Well, I understand that, I understand that fear. And I think, as far as the public university, I think parents should be afraid of that, that of your kids walking away, because it is a scary place out there. I wouldn't want my kids going to a state university or a secular university, because I think they are out there to change not just your mind and give them an education, but to change their hearts away from God. So that would scare me. I would take that off the plate, and if you think a Christian college is the only what your kid needs to get where God wants them to be, then God will make a way. I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, I really wouldn't. I wouldn't worry about the finances right now. I wouldn't worry about any of that. I mean, if you can put money aside, that's great. If you can't put money aside, then I would just leave it all up to God. And God wants your kid, son or daughter, to go there, He'll get them there. Again, there are a lot of other options as well. And we've talked about this before. I mean, Christian colleges are very competitive. They want your students. They're willing to work with you in whatever way. But maybe you'll find out that, oh man, I just thought of something. So my mind feels very scattered tonight. But maybe there's other ways too of getting your kid, your child, to be trained for what God would have them. So I just wouldn't worry about it. I do, and I know sometimes Ben has shared that I think he worries sometimes about his kids. Will I be a good enough parent to guide them in the right direction so they'll always want to walk with Christ? And I believe with all my heart that when you love your child, and I know people could write me and say, yeah, but I did all that. Um, I do think there are some things that are irresistible. If you love your children as you're loving God, I believe they will love God and love you at the same time. You can take that to the bank. So I don't have that fear. I know that what God has started in all my kids, He's going to finish. And if you love God and love them at the same time, why would they ever want to walk away from that? I call that irresistible love that you cannot resist. Now, God may have some hard things for them to learn. I still have hard things to learn, but I'm kind of okay with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I do have that fear of, I mean, I do agree with that overall. I do struggle with the, it's not even that I'm sure, like, oh, I'm going to screw it up. It's more just, I would hate to have to go through having one of my children not be walking with the Lord, because that is just, I think that would be every parent's worst nightmare, is you don't want that for your children, obviously. So it's just, being aware of that. But for me, it is the comfort that it is what God does in their hearts, not just what I've done. So, I mean, I do the best I can, and, obviously looking to the Lord constantly for direction and, stewarding of what He's given me, but ultimately they are His, and I think He will bring them to Him. But I also think He's called us to do specific things that will bear fruit, and I am going for that. But I mean, with the college thing, there are so many options, nowadays. We are in a time where there is more opportunity to do more things than there ever were before. Back, 30 years ago, it was just go to school and that's it, but now there is ways to do things online. There's ways you can test out of stuff. You can do shorter programs. There's options for, as obviously, as we said, Christian and public, colleges. There's just a lot of options now. So, I do think that college is like unrealistic in the way that it's set up. And, people say, oh, well, you just shield them completely. I get that. But at the same time, it's not a real life situation, really. I mean, just throwing, a bunch of 18-year-olds all into a party atmosphere for, 4 years is not really a realistic way of living after that. So it is a very, very susceptible time where you're super, motivated by a lot of things. So I don't think you have to be, I don't like the idea of just like always being afraid, but at the same time, I do think there is things to be very, very much aware of and not be ignorant of. And I think if there's other options you can find, I would pursue those very strongly. So, and I'm very thankful that I did it the way I did, because I know those temptations are just tough. There is just a lot of pressure, in a situation where you're going to go, and a lot of that stuff is very tempting, when you're a guy or a girl or in that age range, So I don't know. I don't know why, after doing homeschooling the way that we all do, which is, different than the rest of the world, why we just instantly go into doing things the same way the world does once you get to that age. But again, I get it in certain scenarios. It is what it is, and that is what you're going to do. But at least being aware of,
But I'm getting stronger against it as I age. I'm also getting just grumpy in general. So, I can remember hearing Cal Thomas talking about a public school and saying on Focus on the Family, when he was talking about people should homeschool, and he said, Jim, and he was talking to Jim Dobson. He said, Jim, I think we ought to treat our public schools like they're on fire and get our kids out.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim Dobson tried to soften that, and kind of say, well, Cal, you're not saying that everybody needs to. And he said, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm saying strongly, unless you have a really good reason, unless God has stood at the foot of your bed and told you your kid needs to go to a public institution of higher learning, I would just be afraid to do that. Not afraid because I'm fearful, but if I knew of a lake that had eaten 20 people from sharks, I would be a fool for swimming in the lake. How many stories do we need to hear about our kids walking away where we still have it on the table? And I don't understand that. And I'm not saying there aren't kids who have made it through. They have, but it still affects and influences. And I just don't think the price is too high.
Mm-hmm.
So again, and I will say, I'm looking up your name, Sarah. Sarah, you don't have to be afraid. I think you're thinking right. God's got to take care of you just like he takes care of the birds. And if you think your child needs to go to a Christian college and that's the only option you have because you've taken the other off the plate, I think God's big enough to take care of it, and
Yeah.
he'll take care of you too. And I don't think you have to worry about your kids walking away. You can be assured that he has them safely in his hands, and he's going to get them exactly where he wants them to be, and he loves them even more than you do. And that's kind of a good place to stop, because as we are homeschooling our kids, we are not doing it so we can make sure they believe everything we believe. We're doing it because there's no other option, really. That's the way parents were made to raise their kids. That's what homeschooling is. It's just training your children. God set it all up, and he said, here, parents, take care of these kids, get them to where they can do the same. And that's all you have to do. So I hope that brings you smiles. I hope it brings you joy. I hope you have a great week. I hope it's warming up a little bit where you live, because it's cold here in northern Indiana. I saw ice on a puddle this morning. But spring is coming, and summer's right behind it, and it'll be here before you know it. And you get to decide when you're done. You get to decide if you're going to, race all the way up to the end, or if you're just going to back off and enjoy this month and a half before it's over. Because, not just the month and a half, but it won't be long before it's all over. It goes so fast. So enjoy it and smile and have a wonderful week. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And if you are, Dad, you have the Illinois convention this weekend, right?
We do. We're going to be at Patch, which is in Peoria, southern Illinois. It's going to be a great time. If you're there, make sure you stop by and say hey. And hope to see you there.
Get your personality sticker. If you haven't done it, again, you can do it over on our website, thesmilinghomeschooler.com. Take the personality test for homeschool personality test, and then you get a free sticker if you stop on by the booth. So definitely should do that. Again, thank you to Teaching Textbooks for making the Smiling Homeschooler possible and supporting what we do. They help homeschoolers smile. So if you haven't checked them out, you definitely should at teachingtextbooks.com. They're just an amazing company. Today's show is also made possible by Samaritan Ministries and Redeem Health Share, where members are committed to honoring Christ and serving one another through healthcare needs. As Dad likes to say, we use, love, and recommend Samaritan Ministries. And you can learn more in the show notes about Redeem Health Share by Samaritan Ministries. But have a great week, and don't forget to smile.